Okay, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today, we're journeying way beyond the glossy tourist brochures. We're going to uncover not just the breathtaking beauty, but the shockingly resilient history of Grenada.
It really makes you wonder, right? Is paradise born, or is it built from survival? Look, when most of us think of the Caribbean, we immediately picture those pristine beaches, lush landscapes, just the absolute perfect vacation destination. But I want to challenge you to totally rethink that perception. We're diving into a 500-year story of colliding empires, fierce revolution, and just extraordinary survival.
Section 1. The Early Spice Isle. So before 1498, Grenada was this peaceful, densely settled home for Amerindian communities who'd actually migrated all the way from the Amazonia region of South America. But then the Spanish arrived in 1498 and, well, it was devastating. They brought ferocious hunting dogs and diseases, which led to the tragic extermination of the indigenous people. Jumping forward a bit, the French landed a garrison in 1650, driving back what was left of the native resistance. And finally, the British swoop in and take over the island's capital during the Seven Years' War in 1762. So you can see, it was this violent, centuries-long tug-of-war for just a tiny piece of land.
Moving on to Section 2, Slavery, Sugar, and Rebelling.
477,000. That is an absolutely staggering number. Between 1550 and 1807, an estimated 477,000 enslaved Africans were brought to the jurisdiction of today's Grenada. We really have to make sure the human cost isn't just lost in historical statistics. These people were packed so tightly into ships during the horrifying Middle Passage. In fact, an estimated 15% of those captured didn't even survive the horrific journey across the Atlantic.
And once they arrived on the island, the reality was incredibly grim. We're talking brutal 18-hour shifts in highly dangerous sugar production facilities. But, and this is absolutely crucial, they didn't just accept this. There was fierce, constant resistance against the planters. A lot of people actually managed to escape into the island's mountainous interior, forming these hidden maroon towns. This totally undermined the planters and protected their own communities. Eventually, this resistance boiled over into the massive 1795 Macuba Rebellion. Ultimately, after years of grueling struggle, the British finally abolished slavery there in 1834.
Now, here's the totally surprising fact. Nutmeg isn't actually native to Grenada. No way, right? The island is famous globally as the Spice Isle, but nutmeg was actually brought in as a way to rebuild the local economy after a completely devastating hurricane flattened the community in 1780. So the takeaway here is that Grenada literally earned its famous nickname through sheer resilience and adaptability right after a massive natural disaster.
All right, Section 3, Independence and Political Turmoil.
Let's look at two defining figures who really set the stage for this era. First, you have Eric Gary. He started out as this massive champion of the labor movement, fighting for workers and actually leading the nation to independence from Britain in 1974. But as time went on, his regime became increasingly authoritarian and repressive. Then, in stark contrast, you have Maurice Bishop of the New Jewel movement. In 1979, Bishop led a widely popular revolution that overthrew Gary, setting up a Marxist-aligned government instead. These two leaders represented wildly different ideologies, and their clash plunged the island into some very intense internal and international scrutiny.
Which brings us to Section 4, the 1983 U.S. intervention.
So in October 1983, things escalated incredibly fast. A more extreme leftist faction within the New Jewel movement actually overthrew and brutally executed Prime Minister Maurice Bishop. Almost immediately following that, the United States military, teaming up with 6 other Caribbean nations, launched a large-scale invasion. Their stated goal was to secure the island and neutralize its ties to Cuba and the Soviet Union. The Grenadian army was swiftly defeated and a pro-Western government was installed, which obviously completely altered the nation's trajectory yet again.
Why did this happen so fast? Well, it's because of a concept from our source text. Grenada's fate became tied to the domino principle. Since the Bishop regime had embraced regional integration with a distinct Marxist ideological hue, global superpowers suddenly cared immensely about this tiny island. The U.S. felt its credibility as a world power was literally on the line. It's just a really stark reminder of how small nations can easily get swept up in the massive geopolitical chess games of the Cold War.
Finally, Section 5, Resilience in Modern Grenada. Fast forward to September 2004, and the sheer scale of devastation hits again when Hurricane Ivan struck the island. It was horrific. It killed 39 people, basically wiped out the entire nutmeg industry, and destroyed 90% of Grenada's housing stock. 90%! The island's infrastructure was absolutely shattered in mere minutes.
It left the economy completely bereft and tested the nation's physical and economic survival all over again.
But let's look at how they bounced back. Following that devastating drop in agriculture and the nutmeg trade, you start to see a brand new information technology sector emerging, right alongside a massive boom in tourism. The island recovered by remodeling its airports, building brand new resorts, and dramatically expanding its modern infrastructure to welcome the world back.
And you know, this resilience isn't just economic. It is deeply, deeply cultural. Enter Spice Mass. This is Grenada's incredibly vibrant August Carnival, which officially marks the emancipation of slavery. It is famous for steel bands, calypso, soca music, and those traditional Job Job devil characters. It's just a beautiful, colorful reminder of how Grenadians joyfully celebrate their hard-won freedom and their totally unique cultural identity year after year.
We also see this immense pride in their sporting achievements. Cricket is the national sport, literally woven into the fabric of daily life on the beaches and in the local parks. But the island also hosts these amazing world-class triathlons. And what's truly mind-blowing is that Grenada produces Olympic-level athletes, celebrated throwers and sprinters, who sometimes have to train all alone on local grass pitches. Yet they carry the massive expectations and fierce national pride of both the locals and the global diaspora right on their shoulders.
So, all of this leaves us with one really critical question. How can a small island nation balance its rich, hard-won independence with the constant vulnerabilities of a globalized world? I mean, between sudden natural disasters, intense geopolitical pressures, and massive economic shifts, Grenada's story is one of constant, brilliant reinvention. What you should really take away from this explainer is that Grenada isn't just some picturesque vacation spot. It's an absolute masterclass in human resilience. Keep that in mind next time you think about the incredible journey of the Spice Isle. Thanks for learning with me today.